Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, alongside Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean, beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSPS, my Twitter handle. Ryan Holmes is RHON22. Ryan's on the road somewhere in almost Central America. I'm in Central.
Parts unknown.
Parts unknown out there. Traveling and doing this thing out here. Also, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show out there in the town, in Oakland, Las Vegas, and the Bahamas. I'll listen to the Put on Raiders podcast. So, Ryan, it's been a minute. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I don't know what day of the week it is, but all these days in the spring just run together.
It does.
It's crazy.
But we know we know one thing. We are a week, 8 days away from the NFL draft. So everything in the line season can end. We can not talk about Derek Carr's injury or not injury with the Saints, all those things like that. So we can move on with that. Real quick, we have some questions from the fans. Real quick, how are we feeling about Ryan from Oakland wants to know about how we feeling about what's going to happen at 6. We'll talk about that in the show. But I mean, right now, I think the one thing is it's pretty much they're keeping it quiet to the best right now, or close to the best right now. Nobody really has a feel for it. Spicek just had an interview talking about offensive line. I think that could be either real talk or somebody trying to come up to get Membu or Campbell. I think the Raiders are playing this pretty smart as far as that goes. What are your feelings about number 6 right now?
Yeah, I've always kind of felt quarterback. That was obviously before Geno. I still think it is an option if Sanders is there, but I would lean the trenches. I don't think that's lying season. I think the Raiders are leaning offensive line or defensive line with that pick. Like, I know we want to talk about the running back and the skill position players, but if you want to run the football, have a really good offensive line.
Yeah.
Armand Membo is a really good athlete. He's he's huge. I know he played right tackle over there at Missouri, but he could be the heir apparent of left tackle. We don't know what the long-term plans are for Colton Miller, and if this team doesn't want to give Colton Miller a long-term contract, they don't have anyone else on the roster. So do they feel comfortable sliding Glaze inside? Do they move Mimbo inside for 1 year? Or do they go to the defensive line and add Mason Graham? Or do they add a pass rusher, an outside guy? Or what if Travis Hunter falls to him? There's a million things that they can do. I don't think it's running back at 6, and I don't think it's wide receiver either.
Yeah, interesting. Next question is about Golden and Tet from James from England. He wants to know who we like better. I'm a big Tet guy. I like his ability. I like the way I like his I think he ran like a 4.5. For a guy that size, he's moving. And I think his physical just nature kind of screams number 1 receiver in the National Football League. I like him a lot. Golden is also a good prospect as well. But I still think, I know that they had that little tape from like 2 or 3 years ago when he says he didn't watch tape and all stuff like that. That came out recently. But that was it wasn't a recent taping of him and everything like that. I like Ted a lot. But I'm not sure. I mean, I would consider Tet if I was the Raiders, considering what they have at wide receiver currently. And I don't really see a guy who can develop into a number 1 receiver on the roster. I mean, as far as wide receiver goes, I know what Bowers is, obviously. What are your thoughts about the number 1 receiver in this draft?
I would lean Hunter. If I was taking a wide receiver at this point, taking him out of the equation, I would lean Tet as well. I like big physical guys that can win 50-50 balls and win in the red zone and score touchdowns. Everyone gets enamored with the slot guy or the little speed guy on the outside, but those guys, it's tough for those guys to win. And when they make an impact, it's a play here, and then you don't see him for a week, and then it's two
Yeah,
touchdowns one week, then you don't see him for 2 more weeks because they're not hitting a 60-yard touchdown every single game they're involved in. I think Myers can slide inside and play the slot, but you don't want to constrict the middle of the field because you do have Bowers. Like the Raiders have a tight end who's legitimately should be their number one option for the next 10 years. You should be throwing that guy the ball 10 or 12 times a game. So I
hmm
don't think the need for a big physical outside receiver is there enough to bypass solidifying the offensive or defensive line or even getting the quarterback of the future if you can. And for me, if the Raiders want to be physical and run the football, they don't need an X receiver on the outside at pick six. They need to beef up the trenches because as good as this line was and as young it is, they couldn't move people off the line of scrimmage last year. So if
yeah,
you want to run the football, you got to move people. And to do that, you need to invest in the offensive line.
yeah. The next one is what could possibly be the scenario if the rumors and everything like that are true that Sanders is falling. That I mean, I know the crowd of the Raider Nation wants Genty. They want Genty. They want Genty badly. Everything like that. But you could have a situation where it's Sanders or Genty. But I think if you do want, if either way, I think this is a scenario where the Raiders might want this because if you got a hungry quarterback, hungry team coming up who wants to come up against Sanders, and you don't like Sanders, then you can do that, or you can take Sanders and get your guy of the future. What are your thoughts about? I mean, I'm leaning more trenches. I'm leaning more offensive line or defensive line myself, thinking about like spy tech and everything like that. This obviously is going to be a pick that's influenced by Tom Brady, is his presence as well. I would think I would think that this is I think the rest of the draft might be everybody else, but I think this is going to be where Brady's going to have some kind of input. He is the guy who brought everybody in. What are your thoughts about if Sanders is on a board at 6? Do you think they pull the trigger, or do you think they would pass on him?
I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah,
If they like Sanders and if the group gets together and they think that he can be a franchise quarterback in the future, then you take him because there's no assurances that they're going to be in that position next year or in 2027. Assuming Geno Smith is good and they can win 7 to 10 games, you're not going to be in the position to take this guy that you have this kind of confidence in. If anyone knows him, it's Tom Brady. So if they take him, you know what Brady's influence was, Chip
yeah,
Kelly's influence, John Spytek. If they don't, then you kind of know that Brady wasn't all in on him either. I think it's a fascinating scenario. I don't think he slides that far because now
yeah.
you have the Saints needing a quarterback, the Jets still need a quarterback. The Steelers could come up, but they don't have a second round pick because they traded for DK Metcalf. They need a quarterback. So it's going to be interesting. So I don't think you can just wait to the second round and think he's going to slide into the late 20s and give up a third round pick and come up and get him. Um, so we'll see. But I think it's realistically the Raider Nation has been arguing about Genty versus Sanders for the last 3 months. And there's a reality both are on the board and they don't take either one of them.
Yeah. Oh, that's. I don't think. I don't see it in like as much as I think that Genty is a that I agree with Genty being a really good back, and it just in this draft, like how do you justify kind of if you're the Raiders now, if you're the Bears and you already and you want to just kind of beef up that try to get Ben Johnson his two-headed monster at running back, then yes, I can understand what he's trying to do. But if you're the Raiders, like how do you justify kind of taking that pick when you know that you have such other huge needs here, and this draft has so many good running backs. Even if you get to the undrafted free agent class in this draft, you're going to have really good running back opportunities as well.
It's tough to justify because this team isn't one player away or one running back away from winning the
Exactly.
division, let alone winning a championship. This team is not on the cusp. And I know Raider fan looks at every year as like, this is our year, we're going to win this year. This team right now is not winning the AFC West. They're probably not going to the playoffs. So running backs have a short shelf life. If it's a 5 or 6 year run and this team's not good enough for 2 or 3 years to be a title contender, let alone, AFC West contender, let alone win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl, that's half
Mhm.
of it. That's half of his shelf life that you've just wasted. So I love him as a prospect. I've heard a lot of people recently compare him to Maurice Jones-Drew, and that just doesn't move the needle to me. Like
No.
he's a great running back, and he's MJD. MJD was a great player, but MJD is not changing this franchise and moving them past the Chiefs, and that's what the Raiders need to worry about. Do not
Yeah.
worry about 2026. Worry about the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah. I really, yeah. There's no. And then would you have taken MJD at 6? No. Would you have taken Josh Jacobs at 6? Like, as good as Josh Jacobs has been. No,
Josh
you
Jacobs
would.
went 25th.
No, you wouldn't. You would not. So let's
I
just
would take him
be.
at Smith at 6, but you'd
Yes.
have to be. But my concern with this is like they take Genty because Raider fans are reacting to the fact they couldn't run the ball last year. But one of the biggest issues is they couldn't run block. You have the
Yeah.
same line coming back outside of
Yeah.
Andre James moving on and sliding in JPJ. If you're running out Colton Miller, who's not a great run blocker, Meredith, who's not a great run blocker, JPJ is, Parham is not a great run blocker, and DJ Glaze is an okay run blocker. You have a below average run blocking line, and if you waste that pick on Genty and he gets 3.5 to 4 yards a carry, what are you gonna do about it? I'd rather take an offensive lineman because once you get into the second, third round of this draft, the offensive linemen fall off as steep. You can still go
Yes.
get a really good running back in the third round.
Yes. No question about it. No question about it. So there comes the question. I don't know if it's a world where Campbell and Membo are on the board at the same time when the Raiders pick at 6. Um, so comparing it to saying like, hey, which one would you pick is kind of like, kind of fool's gold. But like, just for shits and giggles, like, if you had to if you had to go through, the tackles here, between Membo and Campbell, which guy would you take if they were both on the board for the Raiders?
I would take Mimbo. He's younger, he's bigger, he's more
Mhm.
athletic. He's not the technician Campbell is, but I think the upside with Mimbo is better. And I think
Yeah.
Mimbo, you could put him on the left side. There's a scenario they're both gone. If New England wants to take a tackle and Jacksonville says,
Jacksonville.
"Hey, we need to protect Trevor Lawrence," but we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago, going back to Genty. If he's such a great generational prospect, why are the Jaguars not talking about him? I saw a mock draft today from CBS or one of the main people, Ashton Gentry fifth to the Jaguars. Who's in Jacksonville? Liam Cohen. They want to run the ball there. So if anyone knows what John Spytak's thinking or Liam Cohen's thinking, those two know each other. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. It gets really interesting. What if they pop him? Then what do the
Yeah.
Raiders do? So this draft is interesting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, especially the teams in front of the Raiders. It's not like those teams were like running juggernauts last year either. So I guess, so like to your point that you made a couple weeks ago, yeah. I mean, why would he not be on that
If you're the
list?
Jaguars, are you paying Travis Etienne, or would you take Genty and let Etienne walk after this year?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, and I was just on a fantasy show the other day, and they were talking about who was one of the most disappointing running backs last year, and it was Travis Etienne. So we'll see what happens there as well. It trade up partners like. Is there this a scenario here where obviously the Raiders would if they could, I think both of us would see if they could trade back, that'd be actually incredible. To get back, I mean, if it meant 11 or 10, um, do you not? I mean, obviously we don't know. We don't. Without the insider show, the Adam Schefter, whatever stuff like that. But just going on like kind of team needs, do you think that there's an opportunity to do that for the Raiders, and would they jump on that if they had the opportunity? Because it seems like if they were able, like, say if somebody came up to, if the Bears want to come up for Genty, or if the Saints want to come up for Sanders, that would be a great opportunity for the Raiders to add some picks to this situation because they need as many picks as humanly possible.
Why wouldn't the Bears come up for Mimbu? Ben Johnson built an
Yeah,
offensive line
hundred
before he got the
percent,
running backs
100%.
Detroit. So why wouldn't they do that? Dallas could come up. Someone could try to come up and get in front of the Jets if they think they may take Sanders. So I will say this: it takes two to tango. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a lot of teams want to move up in this draft. And if the Raiders do move back, put away your trade charts and don't go on Twitter and say they got robbed, they didn't get enough in the deal,
Yes.
because it doesn't sound like this might be DJ Hayden all over again, where the Raiders went from 3 to 12 and only got a second round pick out of it when they took Menelik Watson.
Yeah.
when they bypassed on Lane Johnson, who I wanted, by the way, but that's a story for the Reggie McKenzie days.
Yeah.
But yeah, Raider fans just think, oh, we're going to trade back from 6 to 10, and we're going to get a second and a third and a 2 next year and get all this stuff. It's not happening.
Yeah.
If the Raiders move back 3 or 4 spots, they might get a third out of it. I don't think they're getting a pick in next year's draft. They're probably not getting a 2. So we'll see what happens. I think at the end of the day, they do stay put, because I just don't think the trade offer that they're going to get is good enough for them to bypass on one of the top 6 players in this draft.
Yeah.
Because there are some elite players. Like, I'm not missing out on Mason Graham or Mimbu to trade back to 12 to pick up a 3rd rounder. I'm not doing it.
Mason Graham would be a guy who I just could not. I mean, if he's sitting there, like the phone, I'm hanging, I'm turning the phone on, I'm plugging the phone out the wall. Like, you know what I mean? You have to make that pick, because then you have a situation where you can have a really good, just tremendous offense, a tremendous defensive line who gets after the quarterback and on that side of the ball, and then you just build from there. I mean, it's like sometimes you got to draft strength on strength. I don't know. I mean, somebody's going to drop, because I still, as much as people talk about Sanders dropping, I just feel like I've seen worse. I personally like Sanders as a prospect. I know his limitations, but I like him as a prospect. There's been worse quarterbacks, Ryan, who went in the first round than Sanders, and some of these teams still need quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Locker went 8th.
Yes.
Christian Ponder went 12th. EJ Manuel went 16th. Like, EJ Manuel went 16th. Shedeur Sanders going in the top 15. When you think about it that way, I do think, and we kind of heard a little bit of rumblings about Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia, and I keep seeing people post like, you have to be creative, you have to be able to move him around, and that the Raiders have this defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, who'd be great that can do that. My one question I ask those people is, give me one example of Patrick Graham taking that combo guy that can play the edge, that can be an off-ball linebacker, and has he ever built a package around that guy? He hasn't done it with the Raiders. The Raiders have not had that kind of player. So to just say, well, the Raiders have a defense that could take advantage of this guy's skill set, I haven't seen it, and I've watched every defensive snap that Patrick Graham's called for a Raider. So yeah. I'd slow the roll on Patrick Graham being this creative guy that could move chess pieces around, because you're not going to move him to the edge. That's why you re-signed Malcolm Kuntz. That's why you drafted Tyree Wilson. That's why you have Max Crosby. So if you're going to put Walker on the edge, who are you taking off the field?
Yeah, and 100%. Right now, just messing around online. The Raiders are at 6. They have Graham's available, Campbell's available, Genty's available, Sanders available. Who would you take?
It was Campbell,
Sanders, and Graham. Genty and Graham.
I probably would lean Campbell, because I'm not sold that the long term that the Raiders are willing to give Colton Miller the kind of contract he's going to want.
Yeah.
Knowing that he's been banged up, if he comes out and he has another, average to solid year, but he's just not the player he was 2 or 3 years ago. Now that he's into his 30s, you have a new regime here. I'm taking Campbell, and Campbell's playing left guard day 1. I know Raider fans are scared to death when I say take a tackle and move him inside, because we saw what happened with Leatherwood. We saw what happened with Gallery.
Yeah. He's not Leatherwood.
If the Raiders think that Campbell's a left tackle and that he can do that a year from now, I would take him, bolster up the offensive line. And if he becomes an all-pro guard and he turns into Zach Martin, then that's great. Yeah. But again, if the Raiders want to run the football, they have to move people, and they don't have people movers on their offensive line right now.
They do not. Cornerback. I was just listening to Jake Butt, former Michigan tight end, the other day, and he talked about how much he loved Mason Graham from day 1. He came right off as a freshman, and then was dominating offensive lineman who I guess the 2 years in a row, that his first 2 years in a row that he was at Michigan, the Michigan offensive line won the best offensive line award, whatever that award is in college. So he's doing it against really good players. So that's when he knew that Michigan was a really good player. Somebody asked him about Will Johnson, and Will Johnson was more along the lines of like, hey, did he actually shut it down? At times this year, how good, how is he worth, a pick that high? Injuries, things like that. What are your thoughts about Will Johnson, because I think because when you go to like a different areas, they always it seems like cornerback is like the number one need by a lot of draft boards or draft simulators for the Raiders.
Yeah, and the listeners of this show know that we've been talking about Will Johnson since like November, December, and I've always said I don't think he's going to run the way people think he's going to. I'm going to go back and find the clip and post it in the next couple of days. But we talked about him running in the 4.5s, 4.55, and that there's a reason why he's not running the 40 right now,
Yep.
and it's because he's not a burner. And he needs to play in an off man scheme or a zone scheme where he can play forward. He doesn't have to recover and flip his hips. His short shuttle time was not good for elite corners. And when you're picking at 6 and you're taking a corner, he better have elite traits. He does not. And I've talked about him not being a top 10 pick for months. So
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me if the Raiders trade down. This is when I get into what we just talked about. Like if you're trading down and you're taking Will Johnson at 12 and you picked up a third rounder, was it really worth bypassing Mimbu or Genty or Graham to get a corner that just doesn't have the traits to be an elite lockdown man-to-man number one guy? He's got to be in the right scheme. He's got to be playing a ton of zone, which the Raiders do. But what happens if this team doesn't win, or 2 or 3 years from now, Patrick Graham's gone? You go get a man-to-man guy, and then Will Johnson can't play in that scheme. You just wasted a pick, and you traded down to do that.
Yeah.
So, um, for the Raiders, I'm more of a Barron guy, and
Yep. Johnny Barrett.
I wouldn't take him at 6 either. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so that was so. Yeah, I'm a big Barron guy too, and I think that he would have to be a trade back situation. But yeah, I do like John A. Barron. He's a phenomenally gifted player as well. So once you jump to that second round, I mean, as far as let's just say they go offensive line here, I think even if there was a huge run on running backs, there still should be some available. Who are some of the guys? Who are some of the guys like say after? If I take out Johnson and I take out Hampton and then those seem to be the guys who might be going first. What what are some of the backs you like in this draft?
I like Judkins. I like Henderson out of Ohio State. Chip Kelly knows both of them. I like Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Devin Neal out of Kansas later on, like fifth,
Yeah,
sixth round.
6 round.
I'm a big Damian Martinez guy to get in later on, and the Chiefs just brought him in for work. I would hate for the Chiefs to get their hands on Damian Martinez. Um, I would like to get my hands on one of those 5 guys if I could, or 2 of them if you can.
Yeah,
I would like
I
Jadon Blue is situational, like
I
pass
love
catching
Jadon Blue.
back,
Yeah, exactly.
7th round out of the backfield. So the Raiders should mix and matching at 2 backs that do 2 different things in this draft.
I mean, I keep on saying it, and I'm like, even if they don't get a guy in the actual draft, they're gonna have to be on the undrafted free agent, working the phone and get somebody in here because I think they kind of need to walk away from this draft with two kind of like what maybe 2 corners and two running backs. They kind of have to. I mean, like they if they can possibly because I mean I think that would be really important for the Raiders to really do in this situation. What do you feel about just a couple corners here, real quick? The kid, the Trey Amos out of Ohio, Ole Miss, and if you haven't seen him, that's fine. That's cool. And then we have one more, and I think we talked about Revel already. Revel just has too many injuries for me to feel comfortable for the Raiders to take him.
In the 2nd round, I could see the Raiders taking a chance on him. Again, he's coming off an ACL injury, played at a lower level of competition. It seems like every time the Raiders take a guy that was injured his draft year or in the process leading up, it just hasn't worked out.
Mhm.
DJ Hayden comes to mind. Tyree Wilson comes to mind. Like the Raiders just have this way of taking guys that were hurt and then they just never actually return to what they were. So like
Yeah.
hopefully he's a great player and has a great career. I would think about in the 2nd round. Amos, long, lanky corner, fits kind of the Pete Carroll system, and the Raiders need corner, so I could see him being an option in the 2nd round. Morrison's kind of in the same. You hear his name a lot out of Notre Dame. He's kind of scares me as well. Injuries, like
Yeah.
another guy that's been hurt and didn't go through the process. So I'd probably steer clear of the hurt guys because the Raiders need guys that can come in and play right away. They don't have a lot of depth at
Yes.
corner.
Exactly.
So whoever they take in the second or third round has a chance to win a starting job because the Raiders really don't have a slot guy right now. It's Darnell Holmes or Darnell
Yes.
Holmes, and the outside guys right now are Bennett, and who knows who's going to start opposite him? Is it DeCamerion Richardson? They just let go of Jack Jones, so we don't know who the other corner is going to be. Is it someone they signed in free agency? Is it going to be Stokes? Like, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and even the guys who they added in free agency have a tendency to get hurt.
Ben
So,
Hur.
so they've been hurt a lot. So it's really a tough situation. And if those guys were veterans who played, 16, 17 games a year, then I feel more comfortable. But Stokes was what he got drafted like 2021, 22, something like that. Like, I mean, he's been around for a while, and he hasn't played games. So I'd be worried about him if I was the Raiders as well. Getting this question a lot. What would be the biggest mistake the Raiders could make in this draft? Um,
The biggest mistake, I think we've kind of touched on it. I think would be trading down and missing out on an elite offensive or defensive lineman
yeah,
and not getting a huge return. Trading down 6 or 7 spots and picking up like a third and a fifth and not being able to get an impact guy in the second or adding an impact pick for next year and coming away with like a system or scheme fit guy that we don't know how long this coaching staff's going to be here, to be honest. So like they should just dominate the trenches. And I know like we've gone in circles of wide receiver, quarterback, running back, corner.
mhm.
Like they need to get a good offensive defensive line before they can do anything.
Yes, that's,
Or if they're sold on the quarterback, take the quarterback.
yeah, no question about it. They gotta do something. So they do something there. So is it? So it sounds like for the most part the Raiders are not. I don't think they're taking the quarterback. Um, at six, if somebody slides into the bottom of that first round, do you feel like? I mean, the Raiders do have the 37th pick, so I'm talking about teams from 25 to 32. That could be a possibility, and it wouldn't be that like it wouldn't be that bad. It wouldn't be horrible for those guys to drop back. I mean, is there a guy who you think they would Milrow or Dart? A guy like one of those two guys be worth moving up in the first round to get it. Let's just say if they got to Buffalo's pick at 30, would you want to go from 37 to 30 to take a shot at one of those guys?
Depends on how they have them on their board and what the difference is between the two players. If you have three quarterbacks who have all graded equally, you're probably not
Mm,
moving up to 30. You're going to hope that one of them slides down, or you just wait until day
yeah,
two and try to move up 2 or 3 spots and trying to go instead of trying to go up 7. Um, Seems to be they're tied a lot to Quinn Ewers at this point, who again is a quarterback that we've talked about in the past.
interesting name.
Um, if you have Quinn Ewers, like and Milrow there, and you think they're kind of similar graded prospects, like is it really worth it to jump? I wouldn't move up for Dart, but I'm not a huge Dart guy. I would if
Yeah,
Dart gets to 37, then you can have the conversation, but I'm not giving up future picks or I'm not
yeah,
giving up a third in this year's draft to move up to get Dart.
yeah.
Um, I do like Milrow, assuming that Chip Kelly's around for a long time and they're running that offense where he can just mold it around him and you can just basically morph the offense based on what the quarterback is. I don't know if I would move up for him though. I would if he was there at 37, I would think about it. But it's just going to be interesting to see what the Raiders do. There's a lot of scenarios, but again, it comes down to what the teams and how they have these guys stacked on their boards.
Yeah, the
Every
biggest
team's going to
thing.
have it different.
Yeah, the biggest thing, and everybody has a different situation in the. I mean, everybody has us taking Jetty. I mean, so like, so the other Rays taking Jetty. So we'll see if that's something that they end up doing. I don't necessarily believe in that part of it. I don't love that part. So we'll see. What they
You
do.
asked me today on what is it, the 16th? I would lean Mimbu. That's who I would probably take.
Yeah.
20 years old, extremely athletic, big, physical, dominant run blocker, athletic pass blocker, and he's just scratching the surface of how good he can be. And when you asked me earlier who the four names were and I took Campbell, it's because you didn't say Mimbu. So anyone listening to this,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
why did you say Mimbu and then you took Campbell? Well, you didn't
Yeah.
offer.
He wasn't he wasn't available. He actually went to in the mock that I saw, or the simulator that I saw. He went to Jacksonville. So
Jacksonville doesn't have offensive linemen.
yeah. So Jacksonville is did it has the thing. I mean, you can see you can literally this is where like because you could see both Campbell and Membo go back to back. Like I mean, it's a distinct possibility at 4 and 5. They could definitely go back to back there as
There's a
well.
real possibility that Travis Hunter might be sitting there at 6 because if the New York Giants take Sanders, if the Browns
Yes,
go Carter and the Giants go Sanders, and then the Patriots go Campbell or Mimbu to protect Trevor Lawrence, and Jacksonville takes Genty or whichever one of those offensive linemen that they don't take because they need to protect Trevor Lawrence, all of a sudden Travis Hunter sitting there at 6, then I'm taking Travis Hunter.
I do think I think a one team in the top 10 to watch are the Bears because they have 2 twos. And so if they, I mean, they could just sit there and just take take what the board gives them. Obviously, but if there's a player who's available for them, who they like a lot, I would definitely say that the Bears have the ammunition to go up and do whatever they want to do. They did do a good job of they think as well as just getting the interior deep offensive line situated. So we'll see if they want to go out there and get a tackle as well, or get get a running back, or whatever they want to do. They do have some. They don't have that. They have some holes that I think Ben Johnson will still want to fill as well. Another Maxwell Harrison is he the guy who ran the crazy 40?
Like 4-3, something
Like a
like that.
4-3. So 19
Or 2-9,
tackles,
something like that.
19 tackles, 1 sack, 44 passes deflected. Had 2 forced fumbles and an interception last year for Kentucky. So that could be a guy. He's not the typical height guy
He's a
for.
smaller guy, right?
He's
5'10",
a
5'11".
yeah 5'11.5. So he's a guy who I would definitely think as well for the Raiders. We need a corner, but he is not the physical, long arm corner that we're used to seeing Pete Carroll.
Put him in the
Pete
slot.
Carroll get. Put him in the slot. They need slot too. They need something, right? And then a lot of conversation, maybe because it's the way he looks and the hair come flying out of the back of the helmet. But Carson Schwarzenegger from UCLA, I I think I think he's a solid linebacker. Um, what are your thoughts about him? Have you had just a look at him at all?
I haven't seen a lot of tape of him, just browsing through online, so I haven't studied him. But Chip Kelly coached him,
Yes.
so if anyone knows him, it's going to be Chip
Yeah,
Kelly. So the Raiders need
yeah.
linebackers. They need a guy that can come in and play day one. Devin White is on a prove-it 1 year, no guarantee contract that he could easily be beat out for that job. And Landon Roberts is going to be a 2-down run thumper. He's not going to be on the field on passing downs. So the Raiders need linebackers on this roster.
And I will say, I mean, like if you just go by the invitations that they gave it out, I mean, like I think something definitely brewing with maybe a Jalen Milroe for those who who want to see the Raiders grab him and have him sit behind Geno Smith for a couple seasons. I mean, he did receive the invite and will be in Wisconsin in Green Bay at the draft. So maybe he's like you may. I mean, I don't think you do that if you're not gonna be in the mix for that first round. But we see people slide. Like Aaron Rodgers slid. People slide. But it is interesting to see that he got an invitation there.
Pittsburgh Steelers pick 21. Just saying.
So it's coming. The Steelers are not, whether they get Rodgers or not. The Steelers are not walking out of this draft without a quarterback. Without whether it's Dart or whether it's whether it's Sanders, whether it's
The
Milroe.
one thing that Jalen Miller can do throwing the ball is throw the deep ball. And what do the Steelers have? They have two physical outside
Deep
deep
receivers.
threats. So why not build an offense where they're going to play a defense? They're not going to give up points. Now you can control the ball if you have Jalen Milroe and just do a run heavy quarterback centric run game offense. And then every once in a while throw the ball down the field to those two physical monsters on the outside.
I do think it's
Makes a
interesting
lot
that
of sense.
I mean, all sense. Yeah, I do think it's interesting that you know, the that Watt that was it JJ Watt TJ Watt
TJ Watt.
TJ Watt. He's a guy who is people are talking about. Like he had the you know the whole Instagram peace sign with the jersey on, and like there's rumors that he might get traded. We'll see if they actually go do that out there in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's on the table.
Not getting
For
traded. He
the
wants money.
Steelers.
Myles Garrett just got $40 million, and
And
Max
Jalen
Crosby got
Ramsey
paid.
and Jalen, whenever you hear trade, it means I want more money. Same thing with Jalen Ramsey. Like Jalen Ramsey wants more money. He doesn't want to get. He doesn't want to trade. He wants to get more money. So we'll see. And I know Raider fans are. Oh, we should have been. He's not. The Raiders are not making a deal for Jalen Ramsey. That ain't happening. Teams who are really close, maybe a team like the Commanders.
Washington,
Yeah, Commanders would be perfect for that.
a team with a
Houston.
rookie quarterback that has cap space.
Yeah, it's amazing when you have a rookie quarterback. Those are the kind of moves you make. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you make those go for it moves. You see how the Bears are going all in with Caleb Williams. So
Why wouldn't the Rams? The Rams can make a move for him. That they could make it work under the cap.
Bring him back
He's
home.
already played there. He knows the coaching staff.
Yeah.
They just gave a ton of money to Devontae Adams, Matt Stafford, and why not bring him back for 1 year and see what happens?
Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. Any other draft notes that you want to kind of throw in? We haven't talked in a minute, so I don't know if you had anything you saw over the last couple of weeks.
I think the more I look at this draft, I think what we're going to see in the first round is kind of those undervalued positions are going to go a lot quicker than you think. The tight ends, there might be 2 or 3 tight ends. There might be 3 running backs in the first round. That's kind of unheard of. There might be guards in the first round. Gray Zabel could sneak into the first round. Will Campbell might be a guard initially. So typically you see quarterbacks, you see wide receivers, you see tackles, you see corners. But I think this draft is going to be a little different. I think we're going to start to see those tight ends creep in. We're going to see those running backs creep in. We're going to see the positions you don't normally associate with the first round get selected in the first round because there's just not a lot of depth at the positions that normally necessitate those kind of picks. And I think what we're going to see too is because of that you don't have the plethora of corners or wide receivers or quarterbacks is when you get into these rooms, and I know people want to say best player available, the tiebreaker is which one's the premium position. Like if I have 2 guys and one's a corner and one's a safety, I'm taking the corner.
Yeah.
If I have 2 guys and one's a wide receiver and one's a running back, I'm taking the wide receiver. If I have a quarterback and a tight end, I'm taking the quarterback. And then you have to stack it kind of basically where the depth in this draft is. The depth's along the defensive line. So like there's a ton of interior defensive pass rushers. So teams might think they can wait, but then you might not get the ones you want.
Yeah.
So I still think teams are going to grab them. Like you still have to rush the passer at some point.
Yeah.
And I do find it interesting that, just listening to NFL radio on SiriusXM driving around as you hear these commentators talk about like the Eagles take the best player available, the Chiefs take the best player available, the Bills take the best player available. Those teams have elite quarterbacks. You can't take the best player available. They never mention the team that has no quarterback taking the best player because you know what happens? If you don't have the quarterback, the rest of this stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think the Raiders are in a good position where if they want to take a later guy this year, but by no stretch of the imagination, if they pass on Sanders at 6 and they take Quinn Ewers in the 3rd round, Raider Nation, that doesn't mean he's the quarterback of the future. They should never draft another quarterback. There should never be any more competition until Quinn Ewers gets 5 years to prove himself. No, just keep taking them until you get the guy that you know can lead this franchise for the next 10 years. Because that's the one thing the Raiders don't do. They haven't done, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we are here. I do think a couple things here too is like with the Browns and the Giants. If they do go, like say they go Hunter and Abdul Carter there, you go to that 2nd round, then if one guy at the top 4 quarterbacks drops, it's going to be a tough haul for the Raiders because it's like, they could say, hey, you know what, we're on top of the 2nd round. We didn't think Dart or Milroe was going to be here. we're just gonna we'll take him here. Where I think the Raiders would be if they were interested, if they had one of these quarterbacks high on their board, they would it would behoove them to probably try to slip into that end of the first round, because if you don't, then you might. I mean, they look at a back to back with the Giants and Browns, who might in that situation might take a quarterback for the future if they so pleased if that guy drops. But I think the Giants are in a situation where they have to win now. So I think the Giants are going to go all position players. I really don't think the Giants are taking a quarterback. I think the Browns might take a quarterback. We'll see what happens. But we've seen it before. I mean, like sometimes you think you have a feel for a team, and then the owner knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I'm the owner, and I know that you guys are on the hot seat, but I'm taking a quarterback. I'm taking a quarterback at 3."
I think the problem you run into, and fans like to do this, and I like I said, been driving around all over the country, and you hear people say, well, the Giants should take Carter or Hunter and then just trade back up and get the quarterback. But guess what happens?
It's not easy. No.
I'm the GM of the other team. You're calling me at pick 20. You know what I want? I want your first round next year. I want your second round this year. It's going to have to be a massive, massive overpay, because I know that you're coming to get the quarterback.
Exactly.
I'm not moving just to move for a third round pick. Like, the fans just think that the other team's just going to acquiesce and let you come up for no capital. Like, that's not going to happen. So it's going to be really, really hard for those teams. You better like 5 or 6, 7 quarterbacks in this draft to do that.
Yeah.
Because the chances are you're not going to be able to move back up. And if someone else may be able to jump into the mid-20s and beat you. So you better like Milroe. You better like Tyler Shuck. You better like Quinn Ewers. You better like Jackson Dart. You better like all of these guys, because it's going to be really hard for those teams to move up. It's not as easy as just saying take the best player at 3 and then move back up.
It's much harder to do in real life than it is on the draft.
Especially when you're the Giants
simulator.
and the Browns, and we know that you have to take a quarterback.
Exactly. I will say one thing before we go on Tyler Shoe. I have written down all the guys who've gone on Twitter and said he's the best quarterback in this draft, because
keeping the receipts.
I'm keeping the receipts, dude. Because
if they like a guy who's always hurt and is only going to play 8 to 9 games a year, go for it.
Exactly.
And he's 25, 26 years old.
Yeah. So
it's not like he put up crazy stats at Louisville.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it was Chase Daniels or somebody else said that, I don't care about age and everything like that. I'm like, all right, cool. But like when he's out of the league in 2.5 years, I mean, if I'm wrong about him, I'll eat crow. But I don't know how you could be so gung ho on a guy like Tyler Shoe. It makes no sense to me.
Because this draft sucks.
Well, at quarterback, it might.
No, it doesn't suck. There's just not a lot of depth into it. At the end of the day, history says there's probably only one of these guys is going to be a franchise quarterback. We don't know which one. It might be. It might be Milroe. Who knows? But it might be Cam Ward. It might be Shedeur Sanders. But the chances of 3 or 4 of these guys being franchise quarterbacks probably not happening.
No, in this draft, maybe not. All right, Red Nation. Ryan, always good to talk to you. Take care.
Take care.
It is Wednesday, just so you know.
I'm flying on Saturday. That's all I know.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, don't miss your flight. All right. Take care.